Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Nuff channel. In this video, it's Team List Tuesday for the rest of round 1 of the 2026 NRL SuperCoach season. So we'll have a bit of a look at the teams for the other 6 games. Obviously the 2 Vegas games have already been done. And then off the back of that, I thought it might be fun to have a look at a bit of a squad build for players that are still eligible. So if you watch the games in Vegas and you thought this is a bit of fun, I'd like to get around this, and or you've just been lazy and forgot to get your SuperCoach team in, this might be a great opportunity to put together a decent squad and see how we compare to those that played in Vegas. So yeah, we'll get into the team list first. Storm and Eels. So for the Storm, Failongo named at fullback as expected. Jack Howarth in the centres is nice. Moses Leo in the centres. So that's an interesting pick. Obviously, Xavier Coates out for a few weeks, but they've actually moved Nick Meaney out to the wing to accommodate Moses Leo in the centres. So, yeah, definitely a cheapie that we could use. Munster and Hughes in the halves. The forward pack. So the second row is Chan and Lasardi both getting a start. Yeah, no Sean Bloor by the looks of it. So do we go one or both of these guys in our second row? For the Eels, get myself organised. So Iongi at fullback, Simonson, Russell on the wings with Josh Adokar out injured for the first few weeks. Will Penasini, Brian Kelly in the centres. Pezzett Moses in the halves as expected. Yeah, just have a look through. Forward pack as expected as well. And then the bench. So carrying a few middle forwards. Edge forward into Tuolungi. Papali'i will cover the backs. And a couple of names unfamiliar to me on the Storm bench. Cooper Clark. Haven't heard much about him before. Preston Con. Tui Malatu Brown. But it could also potentially be the likes of Vailapu, Trent Tolau come off the bench. As we saw in Vegas, there's a little bit of subject to change with the interchange potentially. Warriors, Roosters. So for the Warriors, CNK named at fullback, DWZ, RTS on the wings, all the acronyms. Leia Tower and Pompey in the centres. Harris DeVita, Tanner Boyd in the halves. So in the forwards, Jackson Ford starts at prop. Jacob Laban gets the start on the edge, so it could be a popular cheapie. The bench, Healy, Valmunga, Halasima, Stow Smith, Tuapiki, Morgan, Gannon. So again, pretty much as expected for the Warriors. The Roosters, no real surprises in that back line. DCE in at 6. Iwelu named the start in the 9. So it could be a nice cheapie option at hooker if you're looking to go down that path. Collins, Crichton, Nat Butcher on the other edge, Blake Steep at 13. So Connor Watson coming off the bench. CY Wong, Egan Butcher, Spencer Lenu, Cody Ramsey named on the extended or on the interchange. So potentially an opportunity for him to get a bit of game time, which would be nice. And Junior Palga also there. Broncos Panthers on Friday night. The Broncos looks like the same sort of setup as their grand final team as far as I can tell. Jack Kajeski on the edge. On the bench, Ben Hunt could start in the 9, so don't be surprised with that move. Willison, Tolti, Taufa, Grant Anderson and Jesse Arthurs covering the outside. You'd imagine maybe Jaden Hunt comes in for one of them just for a bit of extra edge coverage, like their second row. Although Willison and Taufa can both play on the edge. And for the Panthers, pretty much as expected, backline, Alamotti on the wing over Tom Jenkins. The forward pack, so Scott Sorensen, Luke Garner named to start. was a bit of chat about Papali'i maybe getting a run, but hasn't panned out that way. And I guess maybe a cheapie coming off the bench, potentially, Kalani going. Um, Considering they've got Jenkins, Lussick, and Cogger, three sort of smaller guys, going might get a bit of time through the middle rotation potentially. So that could be interesting. Sharks, Titans. So the Sharks, pretty much as expected, Sione Katoa is going to get up and play, it would seem. The forwards, again, no real surprises. Jesse Colquhoun named in the 13 is nice. And the bench, Talakai Rudolph. Yep, so pretty big bench, and then a couple of coverage for half and back there, so that makes sense. For the Titans, so Fayamani does get the start on the wing, Max Fiernay in the centres. Lachlan Ilias comes in, so the report is Jaden Campbell's going to miss the first month of the season. So I know he was a bit of a point of difference option at halfback, but you may want to rethink that potentially. Up front, Fodawaker, Big Tina up front, Verrills in the 9. Arama Howe gets a start on the edge alongside Beau Fermor. So no Josh Paxton. He's dropped to number 22. So there's a bit of a shock. We thought he was locked in, but we might have to rejig our plans. On the bench, Moran, Simpkins, Haas, by Summerton and Harrison covering halves and hooker. But the four forward bench there, I think, is the main sort of rotation they'll run with. Sea Eagles Raiders on Saturday night. So for the Eagles, pretty much as expected, back seven. Pretty much as expected, front row as well. So Taniela Paseka gets the start, cheapy in the front row. And the bench, so Joey Walsh and Brandon Wakeham featuring. You'd think they're pretty similar sort of halves and hooker coverage options. But Kobe Hetherington, Bullymore, Brown, Falalo. So maybe Wakeham's a half and maybe Joey Walsh is just there to cover Simpkin at hooker. For the Raiders, so Simi Sasangi named in the centres. There was a report from Ricky Stewart that Timoko was going to play reserve grade this week just because he hasn't had a run in preseason. Strange and Sanders in the halves as expected. Probably the surprise one there, Noah Martin named on the edge. Although I think Matty Nicholson was another one that they identified was going to get a week in reserve grade. So probably not one we need to rush to get in. But if you can hold this spot, could be a nice little cheapy option for the team. And on the bench, Jaden Brayley. So Owen Paddy's going to play reserve grade just to get some more minutes into him. Hosking, Mariota, Smithy, Dane Laurie, Jed Stewart. So pretty standard bench there. So those three named on the reserves, but it is expected they will not feature in the 19. Dolphins Rabbitohs on Sunday. So for the Dolphins, the hammer at fullback, so no Trey Fuller for those that were interested, but Selwyn Cobbo on the left wing outside Herbie is great news. The forwards, Kurt Donahue named in the 9 as expected, so potentially could get dual position in SuperCoach. Also Tom Gilbert named at prop, so could be dual position as well, which is pretty handy for Tommy Gilbert. Morgan Knowles, the English international, is got the start in the 13. And then the bench, so Trey Fuller sits on the bench alongside Oren Keeley, Brad Schneider, Felice Kafusi, Sewer, and Wolf. And then for the Rabbitohs, so Ashton Ward in the 7 covering for Jamie Humphries. So so Jaden Sullivan on the bench. So it looks like maybe Ashton Ward would be slightly ahead of Bud Sullivan in that sense. The forward pack, so Bronson Garlick starts in the 9 with Brandon Smith missing time. So that's interesting. Mademoiselle's to come off the bench. Ewan Aitken named on the edge too, so Tellers Duncan on the bench might be a bit of a shock for some. Pretty sure I picked him up in a draft league, so I might need to reconsider that. Um, and yeah, that's it. So a couple of interesting choices or um, selections there, but nothing too crazy. Probably what a lot of us were expecting in the most part, anyway. All right, so as I said, we can take this opportunity to put together a bit of a team, um, just based on those that haven't played yet this round. So obviously we can't pick a Reed Marnie or a Bailey Hayward in at hooker. Um, but what I'm thinking is we'll start with, I guess, the cheapy options that have cropped up. So I reckon we could start with Oello. So if he does start, I imagine he'd get about 50 minutes. He might play 30, 25, 30. Connor Watson comes on, gives him a spell, and then maybe Ueli comes back late and Watson moves to lock. Some sort of action like that. Front row cheapies. I guess, we could go sort of a few options there. Tom Flegler, Paseka. Um, I thought Cole Hearn was more highly owned than that. I went straight past him. So obviously no Trey Mooney, which is a bit flat. But we could use these three sort of cheaper options. And obviously you just pair them up with Payne Haas, keep the front row nice and simple. The second row, well, obviously Dave Fafita's locked in. So Lasardi, given that it sounds like he's going to play left edge, do we start him? Potentially. Cooper Bye, I think we put in just as a cheaper option, although he's coming off the bench. So any other cheapies there? Potentially Joe Chan. I guess the other cheapie that has come up is Jacob Laban. So we could sort of have these three guys on the bench, I reckon, to start. Halfback, I think the obvious one there is Ethan Sanders, 5'8", Jonah Pezzett. We don't need to muck around there. Centre wing, we're getting Fayamani. Well, it says he's not selected. Don't know why that is. Did I accidentally read the wrong name? Yeah, he's there. I don't know what's going on there. So lock him in. We'll put Macassini on the bench. Sounds like he is a good shout of getting the job in round two rather. And then the other cheapie that's cropped up, I suppose, is Moses Leo. So we can have three cheapies on the bench. Not really any cheapies at fullback, but that's totally okay. So we've still got 12 spots to go. We've got 7 mil, so we can, definitely get some great options in there. So at hooker, actually, we'll go back to front. We'll lock fullbacks in first. So I think just based on, we can't get Drinkwater or Kalen Ponga. Obviously, KP would be very nice to get in this squad at fullback. But we'll go with the three popular options, Walsh, Failungo, Kinney. All right, we'll see how much money we end up with. Centre wing, I guess there's a couple of big guns that we can get, like Herbie Farnworth, Kaeliro. After that, a lot of people are very keen on the Latrell, so we'll see if we can fit him in. We can look at Selwyn Cobbo as well on field potentially. So, very popular options. What have got? 2.87. So halfback, again, we could go with Cleary. If we need to cut back on money, maybe we could look at a Walker or a Hines. But I think at the moment, I'm just going to lock in Cleary. At 5'8", for this team, we'll put in Cody Walker as a bit of a cheap option. So it gives us 1.6 mil for the last three spots. So get a couple of decent second rowers and a hooker to finish. So second row. So I guess just looking at the big guns, Isaiah Yo, Big Tino, could do that. But then that only gives us 350k to spend on a hooker. We probably need a bit more money than that. So where do we cut a corner? Potentially we go down from Herbie Farnworth. 800 is a lot to spend. We could go with Brian Toto, 200k cheaper. And we've already got exposure to the left edge of the Dolphins. Could go with Nwangani Tuase if we did want another keeper type option. Someone like a Campbell Graham at mid price potentially. So might just go Brian Toto. I think the price is sort of right. That gives us 574. So can't quite get the two big guns. I didn't want that one high price. So Brayley and Grant we're kind of out of reach of. So then after that, I guess just looking at these sub-premium guys, I'm not too sure on Watson with his role. Starling and Verrills, they've got bench options that could spell them. Same for Wade Egan. So I think maybe someone like a Simpkin. It's pretty sort of yeah, mid price. And obviously, if you did want to get a Reed Marnie, it's an easy swap in a week or two. Because I guess that's the other thing to be mindful of too. If you're setting up a team like this and you want to get a Ponga in or you want to get whoever, it might be worthwhile running someone at a similar price and then looking to trade them in the coming weeks. So I'll put this team together and we'll look at a bit of an example. So we'll save the team. Yep, that's fine. Don't care about the free trial. So we'll whack Simpkin on field. We'll get Payne Haas in the front row with, let's do Flegler. Although I have picked Colquhoun and Paseka in my team, not Flegler currently, just for a bit of difference. Obviously, Tino and Isaiah will come into the starting team. Cleary, Cody Walker in the halves. So Kale Iro, the Trell, Cobbo, and then Walsh, Kinney, Failongo. So, in terms of our reserves, probably Failongo is definitely on. Um, After that, it depends how you want to play it. Like I'd probably go for the upside of Faamani on the wing, um, and then after that maybe Colquhoun and one of these guys, maybe Sanders. It doesn't particularly matter. Um, and then captain, vice captain. So they've gone with Toto and Walsh. Um, but realistically, the Broncos Panthers play the same game where we've got a lot of guns. So um, the loophole is going to be a bit hard to pull off, even though we have Matt Cassini there ready to go. So it could be a case of uh, Warriors, Roosters. Do we have the money to go up to Teddy? Yeah, we've got a heap of cash. So maybe we go Teddy instead. And then Teddy can be the vice captain. And then maybe the safe option is Haas as captain. Yeah, so you could do something like that. And then next week, once the trades open up, say we really wanted to get Ponga, we could potentially trade out we could leave Tedesco. We could trade out someone like a Kinney or Failongo. So we'd have to find 100k. Um, but what we could do is maybe also, um, downgrade someone like an Isaiah Yeo to a Couchman or a Trey Mooney. Would probably give us that money to make that happen. All right. Or, we could potentially downgrade a centre wing to a Chester or a Setu 2 to try and, fund those upgrades elsewhere. So, it's not entirely over if you didn't pick those guys in Vegas. Obviously, some of them would have been nice to have, but I think you can still put together a pretty decent squad if you want. And I guess now that I have set it up, I will put this team in the Supercoach Nuts Open League. So if you want to join that, I don't know if you can see the invite code on here, but it will be in the description below this video. So we'll try and keep track of the team. Obviously, I might forget to make trades in it and that some weeks, but it is what it is. Yeah, we'll wrap the video up there. I'll go back to the team. It's always nice to look at. Um, yeah, so if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to add them below this video. Give us a like if you enjoy the team list review and obviously the content around that. Subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on the channel. We'll have our final round one teams on Thursday before the first game. But other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.